Hello there! I'm Squire Kalahan Ridgeborn, almost a battle master, always a wizard, and tonight I am joined by a special guest, Tiibi, who is a Paragon Paladin, here to talk to us about Paladin things. Tiibi, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you could be on.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
Tiibi, how long have you been playing Amtgard?
I have been playing since August of 2018, so barely just getting kicked off with Buffer slash LARP before COVID hit, so just a little over a year before we were shut down for a year.
How long have you been playing Paladin for?
Um, I started testing the waters with Paladin probably when it opened up. It took me a while to get my armor kit up and situated because obviously it is way more important to look cool than actually be good at anything. But yeah, I'm not quite sure of a definitive timeline, but within the last 2, 3 years, I think been really hustling with it.
Okay. What first drew you to Paladin?
Well, like a true dork of our realm, always love those good old anime protagonists and good guy characters. And one of my favorites being Sailor Moon. I would liken her to a paladin of the moon, so why not? That was doubly exciting when they introduced the archetypes, and one of them being Guardian. So I was like, I'm pretty Guardian Sailor TV! It
If
was
only
so
you could
exciting.
spin around in a circle and your armor would just be on, right?
Oh my god, yeah. It takes forever to get on sometimes.
So what's the thing you love the most about Paladin? What keeps you drawn to the class and playing it still?
Well, I already said looking cool is obviously a big part of it. I love my armor kit that I made myself exactly how I want it, exactly fitted to my proportions. But as my Amtgard career has continued, so has my fighting ability. And so that was another reason, I guess, why I gravitated towards Paladin. Is like, okay, I can actually fight people now and actually win fights. So here's a cool armor class that I can play where I can hit people, but also still maintain a little bit of that casting. Because I come from Bard as well, so there's a tiny bit of overlap with the Awe spell. But yeah, being able to fight, protect my homies, and just a little dash of magic really drew me to it and makes it fun for me.
Okay. So can you tell me a little bit about what it looked like for you to get Paragon? What was the thing that in your mind got you over the hump of being just a skilled battlefield player and took you up into that Paragon level?
That is an interesting question because I am not 100% sure myself. And if you are a part of any circles whatsoever, whether it be your own social circles or official leadership circles within the Rising Winds, there's always that debate on, what makes a paragon, what sets you apart. And, it's like, do they have the look? Okay, they have the look, but that's not everything. Do they use all their abilities? Well, of course, that's baseline what you need for Paragon. So I think what set me apart is a dash of roleplay, but not so much that it outshined the actual battle gaming ability. As I said before, I really love the paladin like persona, character, whatever. So taking influence from that and kind of acting in that way on the field was really fun for me. And just kind of being that like awesome presence that can just shut down foes. So I think being that kind of shining presence maybe contributed to getting Paragon, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
The aura points, as the kids say, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know what the kids say. Don't ask
I
me. I'm
don't
too old for this.
I don't either. Some Zoomer friends of mine, I'm just like, what are you saying?
How do you prepare for battle games?
Well, donning my armor, very stubbornly by myself at first until someone comes over and asks me, hey, do you need help? And I tell them no. And then they're like, let me help. And I'm like, fine. So putting on the armor, of course. And then, unfortunately, I'm a terrible audio listener.
Mm.
So, like, listening to battle game rules is really challenging for me. So I'm finding myself having to remove myself from those few moments before a battle game as to not disrupt everybody around me because I'm an actual nuisance. So yeah, just partaking in my own little giddy fun before a battle game in my armor, jumping up and down, and then, hey, what's death count? Oh, it's 45 seconds? Cool, I'm gonna go hit stuff.
Okay.
So that's the prep routine. I know it's not super awesome, like, oh, paladin suiting up. That's just me.
On the field, would you consider yourself a frontline fighter then?
Yes and no, it's situational. For paladin, I don't typically, again, it depends on the moment. I will insert myself into those frontline moments should it need it. I do have a higher level of melee martial ability than maybe some other people, so getting those kills and making those gaps when needed. But I prefer to hang back just in like that half step back so I can, so I'm not perfectly in line with frontline fighters, but I'm just that half step behind so I can see if somebody needs a heal, if somebody goes down and needs that res, and then getting a bigger scope of the field to be a slightly more supportive, I guess, frontline, which I think Paladin is suited for, at least base Paladin with their greater res, greater healed, and all that good stuff.
Does Paladin have an archenemy?
Well, you can talk to Nameless. We get in many Discord fights, of course, all in good fun. It's more just GIF wars of I am evil Skeletor guy, and I am, pretty guardian Sir Tiibi, we're going to fight. So I guess if there were to be any of the obvious choices, anti-paladin, but, me as my character as a paladin, we're just friends with everybody.
Okay. So there's not a particular class that gives paladins in general a lot of trouble?
As far as like in battle game situations, yes. I would say anybody with access to Icy Blast or Ice Balls. That's always super fun.
We all know that Frozen isn't fun.
No, it's the worst. I wish it would be nerfed at the very least. But that has been mitigated a lot with the Guardian archetype. Now you have that really nice imbue shield, so you only spend about 50% of your time frozen rather than 95% of your time frozen. So yeah, any class with Icy Blast or Ice Ball, it has a pain in the butt. Shove also sucks personally. I do recall you a couple of events ago just shove treadmilling me, and I was like, I'm just gonna stand in this corner for like 60 seconds if that's cool with you.
I almost felt bad for that. I had 3 different people come up and ask me if I could deal with you because you were just tearing up the line. I'm like, I've got one trick right now, guys. I have 24 shoves. I'll see what I can do.
It worked. I was tired and I did not want to go all the way into the village because that's where you would have put me had I not been like, hey man, I'm just gonna stand here.
I just needed you to be not doing the murder for a few minutes. I think I did that same thing to Heliax at that event.
Probably. He's
the
also
two of you were just tearing it up out there. And, when you've got those high skill players, sometimes you just got to shove them 14 times and see what happens.
Whatever works. I commend your ability to shove me 43 times.
Yeah,
valid strategy.
I still feel a little bad about that one.
It was valid. It was within the rules, and I'm glad we could like communicate like adults and be like, "Hey, man."
I hope you took it as a compliment because it was meant as.
I do.
You have to do it.
Yeah, and that's one thing I think people need to keep in mind. Like, it is super frustrating to be in Frozen 95% of the game or be shoved into absolute oblivion. But, like, to me, that is the highest form of a compliment ever. Like, you thought I was a big enough threat to waste your 43 jobs.
Yeah, well, and it does fit into that combat triangle. I don't know if you've checked out the channel at all, but something I've talked about a bunch of times is the melee versus magic versus arrows discussion. And it feels like the rock paper scissors of the game really is magic beats up on melee, and melee can really deal with the archers a lot more effectively, and the archers beat up on the magic casters. I think that people who only play one class sometimes don't feel the whole thing happening. They don't see the circle of life.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, getting back to our original question list, what do you think the minimum gear requirement is to play Paladin?
The minimum gear requirement, I would say, a gambeson, 2 points of armor for that gambeson really goes a long way. Plus, it's versatile. You could switch it into any class that allows you to wield or purchase armor. So 2 points of armor, whether it's gambeson or otherwise, short sword, and then any form of shield, I think, are optimal for paladin play. I know some people like to go more aggro, but personally, I think paladin makes a much better shield than a sword, if that makes sense. That's why we have anti-paladin. You have flame blade that comes with anti-paladin. You are the aggro, I'm going to attack you and be relentless class. Paladin is maybe a little bit more subdued. That could be my own personal preference, but I don't know, that's how I see it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Paladin gets all melee weapons, and I almost always see paladins just doing short sword and medium board. Do you think that people are just sleeping on longsword, or do you think that there's a negative to fighting with longswords?
In battle games, there might be a little bit more of an advantage, but coming from like a body mechanics and fighting technical standpoint, they're just more unwieldy when you have like a huge like lever arm all the way out here. You have a lot more weight on your wrist. A lot of people don't use great body mechanics, so your wrist is hurting by the end of a battle game. I've heard from a lot of people, even just max short swords are maybe a little bit too cumbersome for them to navigate, and they prefer the shorter. And when they just, close the distance with an extra half step or a step. I've seen people use them as like kind of a down spear, like tucked under the shield. Personally, I just find them a little bit too unwieldy, but effective if you like them.
Okay. Have you ever done anything with great weapon paladin?
I have. It's fun. I'm not a great weapon fighter. Not yet. I usually do a down spear though. Well, not usually. I sometimes do a down spear and then a short sword and then a small buckler with my paladin kit, which is super fun.
Okay. I do want to talk to you a little bit about your paladin kit, because like you said earlier, the drip is everything. How did you go about designing your paladin kit?
So I wanted to do Lamilar partially because it's a really easy entry level armor project. Easy, but maybe a little expensive. You might as well just buy it off the shelf. But with Lamilar, you're able to obviously custom fit it to your own personal dimensions. Plus, part of the aesthetic that I really like is like that Mongolian kind of, aesthetic, and they do a lot of Lamilar. Obviously, my kit isn't, historically accurate,
Who
but
cares?
we're
It's
in a
cool.
fantasy game, so who cares? But some of those elements, like the lamellar and kind of the ornate detailing, is inspired from Mongolian culture, Japanese culture, things like that, and also my own personal heraldry, the rabbits, and then the wings on the back of the yoke of the armor.
Do you have any advice for someone who might be trying to personalize their own armor?
Spray paint goes a long way. It doesn't last forever, but I think that's cool. It looks battle worn, battle hardened, I guess. Because I've spray painted some of the lamellar pieces and it has chipped off in some areas, but like, it just makes it look well loved, like you're a tough warrior.
Okay.
And like I said, lamellar is a good entry level armor project that, with, I don't know when the rules changes came into place, I'm so out of touch with that whole process. But aluminum lamellar, super light, now worth like 5 points max, I think. So you're almost maxed out on armor. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it's at least 5 points. So, like, it's pretty great. Plus, it doesn't require any specialty tooling, like leather might, or even more serious, like metalworking,
Mhm.
blacksmithing. So
Where did
yeah,
you get your plates from for the lamb?
uh, some like Celtic sounding name. I would be more than happy to share a link with you if you want to put it in the video afterwards. But there's a couple of sites that kind of make the circulation around the Facebook feeds.
Okay. Yeah, if you could share that, I'd love to put that in the description for anybody that's trying to lift the look. Could you put an estimate on how much it probably cost you, both in time and money, to make the lamellar?
The plates, I bought 1,000 plates for about $200. Some of that cost was due to, because they're D plates, and then there's a center D plate, I guess. What no plate? I don't know what you'd call it. So those are a little bit more expensive than just the D plates, so that added on a little bit of cost. But anyways, about $200 for the plates, $5 for the spray paint, probably another $100 for the leather and tooling and paint and all dye and all that stuff. So I have sunk maybe an unfortunate amount of money into my armor. I'm not gonna admit this to my wife anytime soon. But it wasn't an all at once cost. Like I bought half the plates with one paycheck, another month bought another half of the plates. And it's a kit that's gonna last me forever and ever. And I can use it across classes, so.
Okay. And did you use all 1,000 plates on that armor, or were there leftovers?
There were some leftovers. I am fairly small. I'm only 5'4", and it got me the full chest. I got some like samurai looking pauldrons, some upper arm plates, and then the tassets as well. And I still have some left over, so
Okay.
1,000 plates goes a long way.
All right. For Paladin, is there anything in the Paladin equipment that is not useful?
That's just going to be dependent on your playstyle and your equipment preference. For example, I personally don't find javelins useful. I am terrible at throwing things. So javelins just aren't it. I know you can poke people with them, but I would rather just poke people with my sword than have to swap between a javelin and my sword. But other than that, yeah, it's just kind of your preference. A bad piece of equipment is one that you're just not comfortable with.
Okay. So you were saying earlier that you like to go with the imbued shield for the guardian archetype. You like to have your short sword. Is there anything in a battle game that would make you deviate build up of your equipment specifically?
If they kind of tweaked the standard Paladin build out, so with the protection for magic, which is currently 2 per refresh, those get blown off almost immediately. So I find them pretty useless unless you're strategically placing them on like archers or assassins or something, which is a valid tactic, but as soon as they die, that's gone too.
Mm-hmm.
So I find the 2 per refresh kind of miserable, more or less. I'm going to be perfectly honest, I haven't tried the new Inquisitor build with the Sacred Blades, but it does look really fun.
Something Gore and I have talked about ad nauseum is the idea of making Warrior's ancestral armor a per life ability. Do you think that Paladin's protection from magic would be too strong if it was self only and it was per life?
I don't think so, just because there is such a prevalence of dispel on the field and our games go so fast. The way our current battle game setup is, death doesn't really mean too much. I don't think so. Once per life would be fine. It would definitely shift the meta because you'd have even more dispel, like targeted dispel, but I don't know. I would be fine with it being even like 1 per refresh, charge times 10, I think would be pretty reasonable. Because then you gotta work for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. There's a couple ways you could go about it, I think.
I like the idea of giving our martial classes, instead of trying to make them all different by changing up archetypes and everything, just making them able to do more of what they're already doing. Like,
I would agree with that.
because I think you have to acknowledge the difference between the casters and the martial classes is a pretty big gap, and I've been actively looking for ways to try to boost the martial classes without nerfing the caster classes. Because if you nerfing isn't fun, boosting is more fun. But that's a different discussion.
Yeah, we could go on for hours about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and ask Gore. I've got a 40-page document of all the different things that I think we should change, but Which ability in the Paladin class do you like the best?
That imbue shield now, it's so good. I feel like a god. I see that ice ball coming, I'm like, not today, Satan! Bap, bap, bap.
Okay.
But prior to the archetype release, I did like teaming up with my natural enemy, the anti-paladin, and giving them my extend immunities and making them really super powerful against death. So that was fun too. But
Okay. For you, which ability that Paladin gets is the worst ability?
again, it goes back to that like protection from magic, only because it's not sustainable at all. I think it's a really good spell. It's really fun, but like, the more powerful it is, the more likely it's going to get instantly blown off of you.
Yeah. Okay. If I am a caster, how can I deal with paladins?
Shove me 7 million times into a corner. It's a little harder with ice ball now, but yeah, shove and icy blast are the best bets to kind of get a paladin to think twice. Like if I see a yellow sash, I'm definitely going to keep that 20-foot distance, if not 25 feet, so I can skedaddle backwards for that extended icy blast. Or even druids have access to it per life, I believe, so
Mm-hmm.
they can be pretty nasty.
Druids, I argue
Um,
druids get more nasty with, like, we wizards get a bad rap for Icy Blast, but it's the druids that get it per life and are doing it significantly more often.
I think we don't. This is getting a little bit off topic, but we don't poo-poo on druids all that much because they are such a broad spectrum of abilities. And I think the meta for druids in our kingdom are the Lyco or the Golem stack even.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not like, oh yeah, torches and pitchforks, druids have the icy blast per life.
Well, it's just one more reason why druids deserve less. Um, so, if I'm a rival melee fighter, what are some things that I can do to try to counter the paladins?
As a melee fighter, go for legs. Leg them and leave them, as they often say in our game. Like, it's 4 points if blast them off with, like, if you're a bard, Song of Battle, or shooting them off with arrows is also great. It's going to be person by person basis on whether or not you want to go head to head in melee fight with them. But sometimes the best solution is just teamwork and let your archers, let your crushing breaking poles handle it from a distance to weaken them before you engage.
Okay. Is there any part of the like archery kit that is especially fearsome towards paladins?
Any good archer shot honestly is a pain.
Okay.
You just hear the pink on your armor and you look around and you got an archer standing back there and I'm like,
how can other classes best support paladins?
I will say this last event, Face Circus in the Rising Winds, it was super great seeing my squire Gore take up kind of like a combat battery bard role. Him and my other squire Anvil made an awesome team. She was playing paladin. He was playing, as I said, that like combat battery bard. And it was really cool just seeing those two riff off of each other. She would keep our little team up, and he would keep her, greater heal and greater res, like, on tap. So she acted as our healer to an effect in that case. So I think Battery Bard is super great in that instance. There are a ton of different ways you could play it, but that's pretty nice.
That does sound very effective.
Yeah, it was great. It was awesome seeing. I was so proud of him. I'm like, my son.
Can you share some of your specific tactics and targets as a paladin? How are you interacting with a game, and how are you adapting to a game as it develops?
My role usually as a paladin and somebody with higher martial prowess than some others is to hold lines and keep, much like I just described for Anvil, keeping people up and resurrected to keep our line steady. picking off as many people as I can, just so my team can get the objective easier. Also, I tend to go really hoarse after events because I'm screaming. And I've heard a couple times, like, oh, yeah, I know Tiibi's playing the battle game because I can hear her screaming all the way from the village. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that, but that's kind of cool, I guess.
I have a couple of more generalized Paragon questions, but before we get to those, what advice would you give someone that's starting out in Paladin?
I would recommend, with anything, just feel out. You have a lot of options as far as gear goes. Feel out what feels best to you. I lean to more of like a defensive, supportive type kit with a sword and board. But, like I said, Anvil is doing great out there with her bulldozer shield and crushing breaking great weapon. And she seemed to love it. So test out a few different equipment loadouts and see what works best for you. Same goes now that there's new archetypes. Do you like playing a more defensive support role? Okay, maybe standard or guardian is great for you. Do you want to go ape? Okay, maybe the Inquisitor build with the Sacred Blades might suit you better. Just test everything out and, take it day by day. You're going to have your great game days and like, oh man, I really sucked days. So give it a fair chance.
What is the difference between a regular player and a Paragon?
Between a normal player and a Paragon, when that person steps onto a field with their sash, regardless if they have the silver trim yet or not, people go, oh shoot, I hope they're on my team, or oh shoot, we got to figure out how to deal with them because they're on that team. I know they're going to do XYZ. Having to strategize around certain players because you know they're going to be exceptional in that role, I think that is very definitive of a Paragon.
As a Paragon, you have the right to take on apprentices in your class. Is that something you've ever done historically?
Not with Paladin yet, although I do offer advice to anybody who asks it, obviously. I have with Bard, though. One of my company mates, Fig, I apprenticed him in Bard when he was just getting started in Amtgard. Although, unfortunately, he didn't really take to it all that well. He might revisit it again, but, no hard feelings here. Yeah, I like the idea of formal apprenticeships. I think it's cool to have those little ties to people and that like formal mentorship, but as far as I'm concerned, I am more than happy for people to like reach out, touch base, ask questions, even if there isn't that formal relationship.
Talking about being willing to talk to people, is it okay for people to come up and just talk to you at events, talk shop about Paladin or even Bard or just in general battle gaming?
Yeah, absolutely. I know often at events I'm kind of like over here and then over here and then over here, but I am always willing to chit chat a little bit about any comments, questions, concerns about just about anything, whether it be Paladin, Bard, or anything. I have been doing really well with myself and my personal growth journey and setting boundaries. So if it's not a good time, I will be like, hey, okay, we'll chit chat later. If I don't, catch back up with you, feel free to like approach me again. But I am never going to deny anybody genuinely trying to improve themselves the chance to talk shop and ask questions. I want the game to be better. It's more fun when people are good at the game.
Well, I have two more questions for you, and then I'll let you go. So my second to last question for you, what's next for you? You've got your Paragon Bard, you've got your Paragon Paladin. I assume you're trying to get your Battle Knight. Is that something that you see in your future?
I mean, cool, but like, I am not in any particular hurry. I am already a master of quite a few things. I am already a knight, a two-belted knight. Like, when it happens, I guess.
Okay.
Like, yes, I want that little green bubble on my mork to be filled out because that is just serotonin straight through my veins.
Absolutely. There. That's the next class for you?
That's not like... I really, really enjoy Paladin and I really, really enjoy Bard, so it's been hard trying to, like, branch out. Lately I have been messing around with my arch nemesis Wizard, so that's been fun. Played that for the first time at a Kingdom event
Come to the dark
2 weekends
side.
ago.
Join us.
It's definitely a different tempo from my Bard play, so it's been a fun challenge getting used to. And then I also picked up Barbarian for the first time ever at Park last week, and I found that to be an absolute delight. So we'll see. Maybe one of those two. Maybe none of those two. I don't know. We'll see. I just am kind of like, I've done things. Now it's just time for whimsy.
All right. Do you have any final recommendations before we let you go?
I would say I know award culture and chasing titles is really frustrating, and I know often people don't feel heard. And it's really easy for me as someone who is pretty well recognized and awarded to be like, oh, they're just awards, don't worry about it. But like at the end of the day, it really is just a game. We can place importance on these things like Paragon Hood. It's really cool to be recognized in our little nerd community that means so much to us. But like, let's just have fun. Let's be nice to one another. Also, why are we withholding so much stuff? I guess just have fun as best you can. I don't know. I guess it's really simplistic and easy for me to say, but we're out there in our little matching sundresses and foam armor and hitting each other with pool noodles. Like,
Okay. Well, a special thank you to Sir Tiibi for coming on the show tonight. I really appreciate you being here. If you, the viewer, have made it all the way to the end, please subscribe for more battle gaming content and share this video. Maybe some other people out there want to see what Tiibi has to say. We'll see you in the next one.
thank you so much.